Hi, welcome to this segment of EPISD's Digital Discoveries. This is a program, if you're just tuning in, this is the first time you've seen it, this is a program where we look at all the educational technology that's available for our teachers, our students, and our community. And so today we're going to look at Project Share. We already started talking about Project Share, how to log into it. So this is kind of like part 2 of Project Share. Project Share is this huge initiative by the state of Texas that allows teachers and students to do all those Web 2.0 things that they're being asked to do, like blogging and creating wikis and things like that. And it puts it all in one little area. So we don't have to go chasing all different kinds of things. And so that's what Project Share is all about. So today, in part 2 of our look at Project Share, we're going to look at something called the content repository. And the content repository is kind of like Google. It's kind of you know, everybody's familiar with Google. But what it does is it puts some really interesting information in one place. And so today, what I want to talk about is all of the different providers that are available in Project Share. Now, one of the things that's kind of interesting to me about Project Share is that it's owned by a company called Epsilon. Epsilon's like a big company that's been using Project Share in university settings for quite some time. And you can see on the screen right now, these are the providers that are providing content knowledge in Project Share. So teachers can actually get information from PBS Texas, from the New York Times, from StarDate. There's some in there that you may not have heard of, like isupportlearning.com or ck12.com and Flat World Knowledge. I'm not familiar with those things, but trust me, they're all really good sources of information. It's all been vetted by the Texas Education Agency, and it's all there for us. So let's kind of look at what we've got here. I'm going to log in. This is my portal on Project Share, and the first thing I want to do once I've logged in is I want to go to a place on the left-hand side of the screen. This is the left-hand side of the screen over here, and it's called the Content Repository. And I'm going to zoom in just so everybody can see it. It's the Content Repository. And that's where all of those providers are providing content. So I'm going to click on that. And once I click on it, I got a completely different screen. And it still looks like kind of a boring. You're like, oh man, what is this? This is really boring. And if you read through it, it just kind of explains how you look for stuff in the content repository. So I'm going to come back here and I'm going to click on the link that's on this page that says Open Content Repository. There's actually 2 links. There's one at the top, one at the bottom, so you can't miss it. And so I'm going to click right here, Open Content Repository. And what pops up is a screen that's very similar to like a Google screen. Up at the very top, it asks you, what are you searching for? What is it that you're interested in finding about? Now, Epsilon, the company that owns Project Share, is actually partially owned by the New York Times. And the New York Times is providing content in Project Share all the way back to, if you can see over there on the right-hand side, all the way back to 1851. So you can actually search on a Project Share in the content repository. You can actually search all the way back to 1851 for information, articles about almost anything that you can think of. So I'm going to look at something, we're going to type in something called Space Shuttle. Yeah, Space Shuttle is kind of interesting to me. And maybe Space Shuttle missions. I'm going to type that in. Remember, when you're doing any kind of search, whether it's on Project Share or in Google, the more words you add, the narrower your search. And so you don't end up with 10,000 hits every single time now. We've got a pretty wide search going all the way back to 1851. So I'm going to click on search, and I may actually end up with 10,000 searches here. So it's going to look on the New York Times site for any article that's got Space Shuttle mission in it. And so we're going to wait here a second, and so there we go. And so say, for instance, I'm interested in the Space Shuttle itself. I'm interested in the history of the Space Shuttle. Well, what's available here is you've got multimedia presentations up at the top here. I'm hitting the mouse over here. There's multimedia presentations. Yeah, I can link to that. And it actually even tells me what kind of presentation it is. So, for instance, here, this one right there says 30 years of the space shuttle. It's an interactive graphic. And it actually even tells you kind of over there it's an interactive. There, Atlantis lists off for the last shuttle mission. There's images. So there's pictures that are available. Then here's a video library. So obviously that's a video about the space shuttle. So maybe I'm kind of interested in that 30 years of the space shuttle. So I click on that interactive graphic and look what pops up. I've got an article that this could not have possibly been in the New York Times. Even though the graphic itself could have been in the New York Times, the information could not have been put on a piece of paper. It could only have been done on the web. And so this is a history of every single shuttle launch that ever happened. And so you think to yourself, oh, that's kind of boring. Yeah, okay, there's lots of shuttle launches. Yeah, it goes through. But it's interactive. So they told me there's something interactive about this. So I'm going to click on one of these little things. Whoa, look at that. Every single one of these lines has information about each individual shuttle mission. So there's one there. That's from the Challenger from February 3rd, 1984, not 1894, 1984. The first Space Lab mission. There's all different kinds. So that's kind of an example of kind of the cool interactive stuff that's available. You can also find articles. Teachers can also find lesson plans that are available here. So teachers, this is a great place for you. There's articles here. And then if you search even further, teachers, you can actually even find lesson plans. And what's really neat about these lesson plans is that they're aligned to the Common Core standards. They're not aligned necessarily to the Texas TEKS. So you got to look at them. You got to vet them before you use them in your class to make sure that they're matching. I want to pop back out and show you just some of the other. We're still on Space Shuttle. We're still looking at that. So let's look at another possible source, Texas PBS Learning Media. So let's look at what they had about Space Shuttle. Let's see if they had anything. And that particular one had none. So I'm going to pop back out and just say Space Shuttle, because maybe I was like too specific for PBS Media. So I'm going to click on Space Shuttle. It's going to look, and we're going to go find it, hopefully. There we go. And it pops back out as the New York Times. It kind of automatically defaults to the New York Times. But let's go look at PBS Learning. And in PBS Learning, there's actually 3 videos that have to do with Space Shuttle. One has to do with about the Space Shuttle tile, a demonstration of the transfer of thermal energy. That'd be kind of interesting for our science teachers. And it even tells you the grade level that it goes for. This one's for 5th grade. Coconuts video. It's from a show called Dragonfly TV, and it's for 4th through 6th grade. And then they have some other ones about, and it goes from 6 through 12. So you can actually see that there's lots and lots of different sources that are available. StarDate, anybody familiar with that? Famous radio show that's been on for years and years. Their entire collection is online. Flat World Knowledge is open source learning. So maybe you want to learn chemistry from something other than the textbook that you're using. You can use the Flat World Knowledge to find that. PhET simulations are simulations for our physics teachers. All of them are online. They're awesome. They're from the University of Colorado. MIT has open courseware online. We've got the International Children's Digital Library. That's an awesome resource, especially for our younger readers. Teachers can type in, for instance, cats. I can type in the word cats, and the International Children's Library will come up with books that are in the public domain that you can actually read online or even download for your students. And so a lot of these are really good that you can use your interactive whiteboards with. There's some awesome stuff. So I'm going to click over here to the International Children's Digital Library, see if there was anything there. And sure enough, there was an article. There's several ones about cats. There's a whole bunch on cats. There's 74 books. Now you got to be careful with the International Children's Library because some of them are not in English, some of them not in Spanish. We pulled up one earlier. It was in Yiddish, so if you want to learn Yiddish, maybe that's the way to do it. You want to learn German, you can pull up German books as well, Spanish as well. So some of these are very, very old books. Those are kind of cool to look at. They've all been digitized, they've put on there. So what I want to encourage all of our teachers and all of our students to do is start exploring these resources that are available for free in Project Share for all of our students and all of our teachers in EPISD. And I want to leave you with this question. Since you can go all the way back to 1851 and look at any article in the New York Times, what historical event from 1851 to right now would you look at? Would it be Lincoln's assassination? Would it be the beginning of World War II? What historical event would you want to look at? Thank you for joining me for this edition of EPISD's Digital Discoveries. We'll see you next time.